I want to welcome you to the Pro Mindset Podcast. The Pro Mindset Podcast is all about diving into the headspace that results in championship performance. High-performing athletes, winners, have this mental flow and have a positive headspace for their performances and success. Join me, Craig Domann, sports attorney and NFL agent, on this podcast. I will interview pro athletes, college athletes, football coaches, and sports personalities. Together, we can discover how you can get in the flow and have your own pro mindset.
Today on Pro Mindset Podcast, we have as a guest a sports attorney and NFL agent, Kevin Robinson from Capital Sports Advisors in Denver. Kevin, we're going to get started. I want to thank you for being on, and let's go. How do you coach your guys in preparing for the draft to maximize their performance and their opportunity?
Right.
How do you guys help your guys understand that the draft is just a weekend?
Right.
Right? That, you want to get drafted. You want to get a signing bonus, but you got to go to work once you get there.
Oh, yeah. No, and it's one of those things, Craig, where I'm sure a lot of players have to understand that you want to be easy to please but hard to satisfy. And
yep.
I try to tell guys that all the time that, you can be pleased with getting there, but you can't be satisfied. I mean, that's when the work starts, is when you actually get with the team. And no matter how it happens, whether it's through the draft or as an undrafted free agent, there's only one person that has a right to be satisfied in the draft process, and that's whoever gets picked number one. And hopefully he's the right type of client and he's not going to get satisfied. As most guys are disappointed. You could have a second-round draft pick and he's disappointed because he didn't go in the first round. Or you could have a guy that's a third-round draft pick that, thought he should have been a first-round draft pick. And so, while a lot of those guys can be pleased, but you don't want to be satisfied, there's typically only one person that's completely happy, once the draft is over, and that's whoever went in the first pick of the draft. So.
I agree with you 100%, Kevin. And the thing I would tell you is that there's one other guy that's not satisfied or elated, but he's relieved, and that's Mr. Irrelevant, because when he's faced with being not drafted, he's dang glad he did.
Right.
But deep down, he thinks he should have went the fourth or fifth.
Oh, definitely.
I'm going to play dad now, or I'm going to play fan. Come on. How could a guy want to be a free agent more than want to get drafted? Because if he gets drafted, he's getting a paycheck. He's getting the credibility in the locker room. He's going to get more reps than the undrafted guy at his position. And, there might be some issues with some guys drafted ahead of him, but obviously there was a huge need at that position. So how in the heck could not getting drafted be advantageous?
It really is, because what you want to do is you want to study the rosters of the teams. And that's why every year you'll see a lot of guys who get drafted from the 5th through the 7th round that end up getting cut in the final cuts, because they went to a bad situation. You want to be able to choose your situation as opposed to anything else, because the goal is actually to make the team. It doesn't matter what that initial signing bonus is that you get, the $500 or $1,000, anywhere up to $20,000 that you could get. Whereas when you make the NFL minimum salary, that little small signing bonus doesn't even compare to the minimum salary of making the team. And so if guys frame it in that type of way and understand that, it's difficult as far as agents are concerned to really manage our clients' expectations. And a lot of what we do at this time of the year is really managing expectations. And I make sure that I talk to all my clients before the draft just to make sure, and their families, to make sure that their expectations are in line. And a lot of times when the teams are calling me to set up meetings, I'm talking to those guys about what type of range are we looking at in terms of the draft, just so that I can manage those expectations.
Amen. Okay, so Kev, how long have you been doing the business?
Close to 20 years now.
Obviously, you're more wise today than you were when you first got started. And so when you take on a new client, let's say you sign a guy after the bowl game, in December or January, what do you want your client to do so that he can maximize his draft status this coming weekend? What are the things that he needs to be focusing on?
Well, first off, it's the training aspect. The first thing that we tell our guys is get ready for the training. And really what you're looking at is you're looking at stages of draft preparation. So one is the training, two, you have the all-star games, and then you have the either the combine or the pro day. And then it's going on, top 30 visits, or even if it's this year, it was actually doing virtual meetings by conference call or Zoom or on Microsoft or Cisco, where guys are getting interviewed by the teams. But really you want to take each one of those stages, and the first is the training. A guy's going to have to train and focus on his training, and that's getting ready for really transforming himself into a track athlete in addition to doing football drills. So guys are going to prepare for the 40, vertical jump, broad jump, lifting 225 pounds for repetitions, that type of thing. So they start training for that immediately. They also start training and doing football drills just to get ready for an all-star game if they've been invited to a senior all-star game. And that's where the top seniors go to. There's 3 different games that they can go to and play where they're going to be assessed by scouts and really graded in those all-star games. And that's really the first chance that an NFL team gets a chance to project that player into the league playing against other seniors at their college positions. And so once that actually happens, they go to the all-star game. After that's over, the focus shifts to getting ready for the NFL Combine or the NFL Pro Day. And then once they do that, that's where you're actually going to be measured in what's called measurables. That's the 40-yard dash, like I mentioned before, the agility drills, broad jump, those type of things. Also, there's another component. There are the interviews at the Combine that guys have to get prepared for. Typically, you'll have an NFL scout, a former scout, that'll really talk to and drill the player on different things that an NFL team is going to ask them in an interview setting. And you don't want canned responses, but you want your client to be prepared for the different types of questions that they're going to be asked, because it really is an interview, and you have to treat it like an interview process, the whole process. And so with that being said, once the pro day is over, then the focus is actually strictly on interviews, and that's talking to the different teams. One, they want to make sure that you're healthy. If you didn't get a chance to go to the NFL Combine and they're thinking about drafting you, then they'll bring you in for a physical. No team is going to draft a player without bringing them in for a physical. At least it's very rare. In a normal year, it rarely happens. There may be 30 players. This year, there may be 15 players, from what I understand, that may end up getting drafted without a physical. And that's just under these situations where we're dealing with the coronavirus pandemic. But it's very rare. And the reason for that is, these teams are investing a great deal of money in the players by drafting them. So they want to make sure that what they're getting isn't damaged goods. With that being said, you have to just make sure that the guys are healthy and that they're working out and doing the things they need to do to really present themselves in the best light during this, and I would call the draft process the interview process, because that's really what it is in terms of getting gainful employment.
Okay, Kev, so let's talk about the impact that a player can make with an interview. What is the impact that you want your client to have on that NFL guy?
One, you want your player in shape, but two, as far as meeting general managers and scouts, he has to present well. And what I mean by that is, one, you want him to know football lingo, language, know exactly what they did on Saturdays or Fridays, what have you, playing college football, but also the way that that's going to translate to the NFL. And so you want the guy to really present himself as a professional. And that means that once he actually goes to the NFL team, he's going to be ready to learn and eager to learn. And where that's important is I think it's important that the guys present and make sure that the NFL personnel guys understand that they have a great work ethic. And a lot of times that's one of the reasons why teams want to see how these guys work out at the NFL Combine or Pro Day is they want to make sure that they got prepared for this opportunity. Because, that says a lot about a guy's work ethic if they aren't prepared for that NFL Combine or Pro Day. And I think NFL personnel guys, most of them have been in the business a long time, they can tell when a player hasn't prepared. That should tell you everything you need to know about a player. If he blew off his workouts after the season was over, then he's not the type of guy that has a great work ethic. So I think that's really important in terms of NFL personnel guys understanding your player and what that player is presenting to them.
How can a player shoot himself in the foot in an interview?
When they try to talk to you, you don't look a person in the eye. That's something that's extremely important. It says a lot about your character, and just your approach to people and dealing with people. You have to be able to communicate effectively. I think that's something that's, very important, and I think that could hinder guys where they shoot themselves in the foot. If you can't communicate the things that you know to somebody else, then that could certainly hinder you in terms of this process.
100% agree. And the other thing I would say is that most NFL teams don't ask questions they don't already have the answers to.
No, that's exactly true. I agree with that.
And so if you lie, you shoot yourself in the foot.
Yep.
You had a problem with, got in a bar fight when you were a freshman in college, or you had some issue with some girl at some point in time in your past, and they ask you about it and you deny it. I think that shoots yourself in the foot, because every scout has had a night or two where he's drank too much beer.
Yep.
Every human being that's a real human being has made mistakes. They're not looking for somebody perfect. They're looking for somebody honest.
Yes. Honest, and the fact that if you've made a mistake, you learned a lesson, and you're not going to make the same mistake twice. I think that's obviously you're dealing in human capital, and people are going to make mistakes. You just don't want to make the same mistake twice and keep doing that over and over again. I think another thing that hinders some guys is injuries. What you want in terms of injuries, you want to be very upfront, open, and honest about that. But from a scouting perspective, they want to know if it's a habitual type of injury. If you've had hamstring issues in the past, they're going to study that. They're going to know that. Now, if you've broken a bone, that's a rare occurrence. That's something that's going to heal. But if you've had, 2 ACLs or 3 ACLs, that could be an issue. Just because, it says something about your ligaments and the propensity to get hurt and injured. And the biggest part of ability is availability. So, these guys are looking at it, you have to be available to play on Sundays or Mondays.
Obviously, the draft's this Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And for most of the players that get drafted and most of the players that hope they get drafted that don't, this is something they've been dreaming about since they were 8 years old, 4 years old, whenever they started watching football. But in terms of, you doing this 20 years and having lots of clients that have played for a long time, how important is the draft and the whole scope of an NFL player's career?
You know what? It's funny you say that, because I think, we put a lot of emphasis on the draft, and obviously there's a high percentage of NFL players that don't get drafted. I want to say, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's something like 53% of players are in the league are undrafted free agents. So that lets you know everything you need to know about the actual draft that's coming up this weekend. It really is just an access point. And it's not where you start. It really is where you finish. And it's just a start on the player's career. Now, granted, the higher you go in the draft, the more opportunities you're going to get to really show what you can do. But if you can't play, a lot of these NFL teams will figure that out very quickly. They will find somebody that can play. And the reason for that is because there are a lot of jobs and livelihoods on the line. And, most personnel guys aren't going to stake their career on a player that they feel is incompetent or does not have the ability level that they need for, that personnel guy or those coaches to continue their employment. And so really, in terms of the draft, it really is just a starting point. And it's the way you have access to the league. It gets you into the NFL, and it's really up to you what you do with your opportunities from there.
Broncos are close to both of us. They've had Chris Harris did pretty good for himself, and he wasn't drafted. Philip Lindsay's all right. He's a decent player. So I really do think that there's a certain amount of pressure that players have to deal with when they're not drafted. How do you coach your clients to be successful, play confidently, stay focused, not count the reps but make the reps count, not get caught up into the soap opera sorority girls conversations at the cafeteria about you gonna make it, you think I'm gonna make it, you got more reps than I did, that type of thing? How do you coach your guys so they can keep their eye on the prize and end up on the 53 at the end of training camp?
It's funny because and I think this is important, Craig, because it says a lot about an agency or an agent in terms of the type of player they go after. Because you want to go after somebody that, one, has love for football, and two, there's a hunger there. And when they have that hunger, you really want to feed that hunger. And what I mean by that is you want to make sure that you're giving your guys something to sustain them when necessarily they may not get drafted as high as you would have liked or they would have liked. But it's important that you explain to them how important it is to take mental reps. And what you mean by mental reps is you may not be getting an opportunity to go out on the field and show everything that you can do. But once you're out there and when you're watching, you're imagining yourself in that position and you working out. And that's the reason why a lot of undrafted free agents end up making it, because these guys have a sense of urgency and they understand that they have to be perfect when they do get their opportunity. There's nothing that'll get you focused like the threat of being cut and having your dream, taken from you. I'm sure that, guys like Philip Lindsay and Chris Harris, when they got their opportunity, they made the best of that opportunity. I think there are a lot of guys that'll really understand that and take that to heart. And then you'll have some guys that won't necessarily understand that, and those guys will be cut or released.
Absolutely. You got to take advantage of the opportunity of a lifetime during the lifetime of that opportunity.
That's a good one. I'll have to remember that.
Yeah, and so if you really think about that and how it applies to NFL rookies, you might get one rep. And it might
one
be
rep. The
one
whole
rep.
Practice.
The whole practice, you get one team rep. And it's a play that was called. The play that was called was installed 14 days earlier.
Right.
And you still got to remember it even though you haven't run it yet.
Yeah. Well, and as you know, Craig, I have a guy, Deion Sizer. He's a kid that went to CSU Pueblo. He's on the Broncos. And the thing with Deion was that we talked about was just making sure you get better every single day. And that has to be your focus going in, is I'm going to get better every single day, and I'm going to pick something that I can get better at, and I'm going to try to approach it that way. And if you do that and coaches see that, one, they understand that you're coachable, but two, your ceiling is a lot higher if you're taking that approach to just get better every single day, because that's showing those guys, one, you have the work ethic, but two, you're applied knowledge, applying what they're teaching you and the techniques that they're teaching you. And so, that has to be the approach for guys going in, is that, you have to take it day by day and try to show them that you can get better daily. Because, if they feel that you continue to get better, then they're going to give that guy an opportunity, because that's going to allow them to keep their job.
Is it fair to say, Kevin, that if you have let's say I have a client, you have a client, and my client's more talented than yours, but he's leveled off, and your client the skill level isn't there, but every single day he's getting better in camp. When he gets in the preseason games, he's balling out and he's getting better. When final cuts come and my guy is second on the depth chart and your guy's third on the depth chart, is it fair to say that most coaching staffs are going to keep your guy because they want to see how good your guy can be? And
no,
because it's rare, right? So, like, the arrow is pointing up on your guy. So they're thinking, hey, it might be a month down the road that before he gets as good as my guy.
Yeah.
But they'll be patient.
That's exactly right. There's a saying, too, that, effort and attitude beats talent when talent doesn't work hard or, doesn't have the appropriate effort and attitude. And so, that really is, that sums up NFL training camps. Your effort and your attitude imply a certain work ethic and your willingness to work. And willingness to work is going to beat talent every single time when that talent doesn't work. And that's something that everyone in every aspect of life can take something from that because, it really is about effort and attitude in everything that we do. Okay,
so let's go back to you're in an NFL stadium. It's the preseason, and it's a young player. Let's just say he's a rookie. He plays okay, doesn't play great. And you have an opportunity, let's say it's a home game, and you're going to take Keane, his girl or his parents out to dinner after the game. How do you coach up one of your clients that's a little bit down in the dumps, that knows he missed his opportunity in that game so that he doesn't go in the tank and get cut when he still's got a bright future if he can recover and pivot from that missed opportunity?
I think the most important thing is to encourage him. First of all, you want to be encouraging, but you also want to be very honest and truthful with your client. You want to make sure that they understand that, it's great that they, one, had an opportunity, but two, took the opportunity to go out on the field. And what I usually do is I'll ask my guys their assessment of how they played. And I want to know, the way the player analyzes their game, but two, whether or not they are realistic about their game. Because, I'm one of those people that believes in brutal honesty because, the truth never hurt anybody. And it's one of those things. It's always your reaction to the truth where the issues lie. And so with that being said, that's why they say the eye in the sky doesn't lie in terms of film, because either you do something well or you do it poorly. If a guy isn't performing to his optimal level, you have to find out what are the reasons for that happening. And if a guy isn't assessing his play in the correct way, then you want to try to make sure that you talk them through the way to assess that they're playing and what are the things that we need to change, if he's not playing well or if that assessment is wrong. And so with that being said, you get a really good feel for different players based off of their assessment of how they play, because some guys will be like, I crushed it. And you're looking at it and you're like, I wouldn't say you crushed it or you played extremely well. And then some guys think they played a lot worse than they actually might have played. And so the guys that play, a lot better than they thought they might have played, you want to make sure that they go back, look at the film, study themselves, and that they're assessing themselves correctly and what are the things that I need to improve on, because all of us have something that we could improve on. Hopefully they have a willingness to take coaching and to learn, because that's a big part of being a professional athlete. Are you coachable? I'm sure you've heard it. The best players want to be coached, and they want to be coached hard because they want to get better, because that's the way you're going to win and be able to take care of your family.
Well, that's how you build longevity in your career, is by having some self-awareness about how you're really doing, understanding what the gap is between how you're performing and how you need to perform, and then attacking it to close the gap. And that only comes from listening to your coaches. I mean, how many times have you talked to a team and asked them how a guy was doing? And maybe he just went from being a starter to a backup. Maybe he got cut and ended up on the practice squad and he was hoping to make the 53. And the team says, hey, He needs to give more effort here. He needs to know his playbook better. He needs to finish the plays. It could be one of 1,000 things. And you tell your client, and his response is something like this: "Oh yeah, my coach says that shit to me all the time."
Right.
It's like,
so
dude, why weren't you listening?
Why aren't you applying it? That's what I mean by, and what you said, self-awareness. You have to be able to apply the things that people are telling you. And that's really the crux of the issue is not everyone can apply things that they're being taught or told. You really have to figure out, and that, to me, that's one of the reasons why, you have a lot of so-called busts in the NFL, NBA, different athletic endeavors or leagues, because certain guys don't necessarily understand how to apply coaching to their games and how to add those elements to their games. And that's why coachability is such an important thing. And typically you can tell, and that those are the things that you really want to find out, Craig, when you're interviewing clients that you want to represent. Are they coachable? I think that's a huge point. In terms of recruiting athletes, you have to be coachable because they're going to have to apply different techniques that they're learning and they're being coached to learn. Because, that's probably the biggest difference between college and the pros is the techniques. And some guys, the sooner you master techniques, the better off you're going to be as far as career progression. And the guys that ultimately end up being all pros are guys that have mastered certain techniques.
Well, here's the challenge. If you go to a Friday night high school football game anywhere in the country and you identify the best dude on the field, and he's playing all three phases of the game, and let's say he's an offensive skill guy, he's not just getting interceptions and receptions for touchdowns. He's taking punts and kickoffs back.
Right.
Then he goes to college, and then some of those guys fall off. Some of those guys keep it going. They're still the best dude on the field. Then when they go to the pros, everybody's the best dude on the field.
Right.
So it's an issue of, it's so much easier for a guy when he's great to be great against a good player. The question is, can he be great against a great player?
Right.
And so in scouting, if you're a scout, and let's say you have some receiver that, has 110 catches in college, 1,500 yards and more than, double-digit touchdowns. But when he was going against a NFL caliber corner, he got shut down. But that was only one game.
Right.
Because the rest of the games he was going against redshirt freshmen and sophomores and guys that are never going to smell the NFL.
That's exactly right.
It's like when I used to play hoops.
Mm-hmm.
When I was good until I ran into somebody that was a little bit more athletic than me,
right.
was longer than me.
Right.
He could block my shot, deflect my passes. I couldn't drive because I couldn't get by him, and I couldn't shoot because I couldn't create space.
Right, and you couldn't create your shot. That's the whole thing of, like, when you're watching college basketball, you'll see a ton of guys that can just shoot, and they can shoot set shots and when they're open. But can you actually create your own shot and create for other people? And that's why, the NBA, you talk about elite athletes. Those guys are just on a completely different level. You look at, like, when we go to the gym just to play hoops or whatever, and we're just messing around, you'll even see some guys out there that, they look like All-Americans, but when they're playing against NBA guys, they're so much quicker, faster, and more athletic that it's so noticeable. Go watch 8th graders. You can even watch 8th graders. You can tell who the D1 guys are when those guys are in 8th grade. It's such a noticeable difference. No matter how much the parent wants the kid to succeed and they want it for their kid, you're not necessarily being honest and truthful, and that the self-assessment that we talked about and self-awareness. Not everybody has that self-awareness, and it's so evident in basketball. And
I think basketball, Kevin's one of those sports where if you don't have a requisite amount of talent, God-giftedness in your athleticism,
Yep.
it's not going to happen.
They truly are elite athletes.
Elite. You put those dudes on, put those guys as tight ends in the NFL, they dominate.
Yes. Think about guys that are that tall that can move that way. I mean, It's just, you talk about a graceful sport and unbelievable athletes. I mean, and I grew up with, Chauncey Billups was quite a bit younger than me, but he grew up on the same block. And you could tell when Chauncey was in the 7th grade that he was different. He was on a completely different level than other players. So you see it when they're really young in basketball. Football is a little bit different just because I think it requires a different physical maturation, and some guys develop at different times. But basketball is one of those sports where you could tell immediately.
Well, I think basketball is an elitist sport because unless God gives you a tremendous amount of natural athleticism, you're never going to play in the NBA.
Right.
Yeah. Yes, you got to work hard. Yes, you got to have commitment. You have to believe in yourself. All those kind of things. But if you don't have that ability, it doesn't matter how hard you work.
Yeah.
Where in football, a little bit different, because if you're big and you're slow twitch, you might be able to be an offensive guard.
Right.
If you're good at soccer and you love football, you might be able to be a kicker.
Right.
And you might be, 5'8".
Right.
So the size dimensions for football are very forgiving. You just got to make sure you're a good fit with that position. Where in basketball, I mean, we don't have guards and centers anymore.
Right. No,
Everybody
exactly
plays, right? I mean, it's like 5-on-5, and they should be able to play. The best ones play every position.
Yeah. No, it's positionless, which is cool. This is the thing about football that's different that a lot of people don't understand about football. And you as a coach, you understand this. Football is as much a game of will as it is skill. And so what I mean by that is you could be as skilled as anybody in the world, but if you don't have the will in terms of having violent collisions, and there's about 65, anywhere between 60 to 70 plays a game. Sometimes you may have 80. So, I mean, if those are violent collisions. So it takes a great deal of will to be involved in those collisions. And so if you don't have the will to deal with those type of collisions, then, you can't play football. And, it's funny because I talk to, friends and different players all the time about, the will. And sometimes you can take somebody's will. And that's why running the ball is so important in the NFL at certain points in games, because you take a team's will by physically imposing your will on the other team. And I'm sure you've been in those type of games where you get a chance to, physically wear somebody down. And it's very evident when it's happening.
No doubt about it. And I also think that during the course of a game, if one play, let's say it's a corner versus a receiver, it's a center versus a nose, it really doesn't matter. If you can kill the will of your opponent, they will let you do anything you want.
That's exactly right.
Because they don't want to fight you.
Yep. Skill level doesn't matter at that point.
Exactly. And I had a client that was a Pro Bowler offensive lineman, and he was wise beyond his years, and he went to the Pro Bowl after his 3rd season in the league. And I would always ask him, what's your secret? You're outweighed by 50 pounds. And he goes, I kill their will. My goal is to kill their will before halftime. Because if I can kill their will before halftime, the second half's easy.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the reason why you have so many undrafted free agents that make it in the NFL. You don't have that in basketball, in the NBA, or in baseball. The skill level is so high. But, in football, a lot of it is will. It really is. And, you get to, like you said before, you have a wide receiver that's killing these players that'll never make it to the NFL. And then all of a sudden he gets in a setting where players are as good as he is. that's where will starts to take over. And, if if he can't do it, then you're going to see very early. And I've heard from a lot of veteran players, much like yourself, I'm sure, that they can tell immediately about the draft picks coming in. They're very rarely fooled, and they can tell early in the practices whether or not a guy's going to be able to help them or not.
Okay, Kevin, how do they know? How do they figure that out? Is it a vibe? Is it, is it their body language? Is it their work ethic? Is it their belief? What is it?
I think it's a combination of those things. I think you get a vibe, and you get the vibe from body language. And you can kind of tell, not everybody has the mental capacity to deal with being harassed all the time. Like, I've heard a lot of different coaches talk about the difference in, take a position like wide receivers, for instance. A lot of college wide receivers, they can't even get off the line of scrimmage against NFL cornerbacks because these guys are so long and quick and strong that they can't even release from the line of scrimmage. So, it's
they're playing wide receiver in college because they don't want to get hit. And
they don't want to get hit.
Right?
Yep.
They're really basketball players wearing helmets.
Yep.
And you've got to be a football player to play receiver in the NFL.
Yep. You definitely do. And you have to understand that these are grown men who have a desire to feed their families, and this is the way they feed their families. There is legitimate money on the line and livelihoods on the line. And so with that being said, there are a lot of people that are serious about their trade in the NFL. And so if you're not ready for that level of competition, you can really see it in people really early.
When you're talking about there's a different mindset in the NFL because these guys are fighting for their jobs because they want to put bread on the table, and they don't want to go home to their baby mama and say, hey, we got to move. We got to sell the house. We got to get rid of one of the cars. We're not going to go for a 6-week vacation next off season. I'm on vacation now. And they're 28, 29, 30, 32 years old, and they're competing against 20, 21, 22-year-old rookies.
Right.
So how do you coach up your rookies that, hey, dude, you got to drop your balls right now because this is big boy. This is big boy ball.
Yeah. No.
How do you compete?
Craig, I let my guys know initially that, once college is over, you're not on scholarship anymore. Nobody's giving you a free ride. It's really time to earn your keep. And the greatest thing about sports is it's one of the few avenues in life where it's a true meritocracy. You are judged based off of your ability and your ability to perform under high-stress situations, period. And that's what I mean by, a lot of these players can sense that and they can see that, and you can tell immediately if somebody is up to that task or not. And once college is over, it's time to be a professional. And that means that you have a skill and a talent. You have to demonstrate that skill and talent, and you have to make sure that it's apparent to everybody, for everybody to see. And you want to do that immediately. And that's one of the things I tell my guys is don't wait to be great. And what I mean by that is you're not on scholarship. You need to show it immediately, the things that you can do so that the teams can understand and the coaches can understand your skill level and what value you bring to a team, and so that your teammates can see that. And then once they see that, they'll figure out how to get you on the field because it's going to help them win. And so that's really what I tell all my guys is don't wait to be great. Really don't. Show it immediately. Whatever it is that makes you special, that talent that you have, make sure that you're demonstrating that and applying that, and everybody's seeing it.
Amen. I agree with that. You have the opportunity to talk to a lot of families, a lot of young men that aspire to play in the NFL at different times. You talk to them all the time. You might talk to them when they're in high school and they're dreaming about playing in the NFL and they haven't even gone to college yet. You obviously talk to guys while they're in college and, certainly this time of the year and guys that are going to be eligible for the 2021 draft. What is like your laundry list of things, your top 10 things or top 5 things that you tell college student athletes that are really athlete students that they need to do their final year of football so that they can have the maximum opportunity to go to the Senior Bowl, go to the Combine, and get drafted next year? What are those things that they need to be focusing on now?
I'm always amazed at the number of guys who, once they leave college, they can't even bench 225 pounds 4 times. Like that, aren't you just shocked and amazed by that? Like,
no doubt.
It just the level of lifting and really what that drill tells me is it tells me about a guy's work ethic and what they've been doing in college and how they've been preparing. And so I'm one of these people that I believe that, a blessing is, I don't believe in luck, I believe in blessings. And what I mean by that is that's where preparation meets an opportunity, really afforded by the grace of God for these guys to be in a position to take advantage of their God-given ability. And so with that being said, you want to make sure that these guys understand that they have to prepare as much as possible, overly prepare for an opportunity that's about to be presented. In terms of their approach, you want to make sure that you're taking care of school. You also want to make sure, because NFL teams and scouts, they do a great deal of research. So they're going to talk to professors. They're going to talk to the trainers, how you treat the trainers, the athletic trainers, the people that help you deal with your injuries. There's some players that, are absolutely brutal when it comes to trainers, the equipment managers. How do you treat people? I think that's a very key part, and it says something about the person. There's not a lot of Randy Mosses walking around NFL teams. He was probably in the top 2% athletic-wise. He and Deion Sanders and some of those guys that just have rare abilities, most guys are going to be, somewhere in the middle, in terms of their athletic ability. And so what is it that's going to separate you? It's going to be the work ethic. And so with that being said, that ties into preparation and making sure that your body is physically fit, how you treat people. But you also want to maximize techniques and start making sure that you're mastering different techniques that your college coaches are teaching you. The other thing I think is really important is film study. A lot of guys don't understand how to study film. They don't know, how to learn about tendencies, things like that, in terms of, studying film and what are my opponents, what are their tendencies from down and distance standpoint and those type of things. The other thing is just making sure that your relationships with your coaches are great. They don't have to be great, so to speak, but at least keep it on a professional level where there's a certain amount of respect there where, they'll speak well of you to NFL teams and scouts.
No doubt. And then what would you, just take a guess, percentage-wise, how important is game film for the evaluation process? Is it, 50%? Is it 90%? Is it somewhere bigger, smaller, or somewhere in between?
I'd say 90%. And that's to me, that's the biggest criteria, whether a guy can play or not. It's funny because you know how it is, Craig. A lot of these scouts have no idea what they're looking at.
No doubt about it.
And so I want to make sure that I get a chance to see guys play because, fortunately, I've played the game, so I can judge for myself whether or not a guy can play or not. I mean, 90% of it is how the guy plays. What does the film tell you? And, I mean, you can see if a guy makes plays, if they don't make plays, do they take plays off. It's all there on film. It's a video resume, and you can learn everything you need to know about a player on film. And really, the off-season workouts and the NFL Combine, the pro days, the measurables should really just basically, it's another tool. It just adds more information about the film and whether or not, what you're seeing is correct. It should verify what you see on film in terms of those other things.
Kevin, can you ever influence a team to draft your guy, especially in like day 3? Or do you feel like it's going to be what it's going to be?
That's the age-old question for most agents, right? Honestly, I feel that we can have a little bit of influence on day 3, and I think you probably feel the same way since you mentioned day 3, because I think we all know the guys that are going to go in the first through third rounds. But the day 3 guys, I think there's a little bit of leeway in terms of how high they can go. And I think that's more a matter of competition between the teams. And, you know how the draft works. Teams are going to draft you where they feel like they can get you. And so with that being said, if a team feels as though they can draft you in the 7th round, they're going to wait till the 7th round to draft you. So what you want to do is create a sense of urgency for those teams. And the way you do that is letting them know the other teams that are interested in your client. And so once they know all the other teams that are interested, they'll understand that they may not be able to get that player where they want that player. And so you're creating that sense of urgency that may push them up on day 3 of the draft.
No doubt about it. And I think the other thing is, if you coach up your players to communicate with the teams when they do to get the calls, obviously if a team's calling to say, hey, how would you like to be a Bear, Cowboy, Bingo, whatever it may be, you say, heck yeah. But if they're calling to figure out and kind of test the waters on the level of interest, you have to be very positive and aggressive about that, because if they think they're the first ones to call you, they're going to hang up and say, hey, we can get him later.
Nope, that's exactly right. I agree with you 100%.
And then the second thing I would say, Kevin, is that once you get late in the draft and you're talking to a team and they're calling with a recruiting pitch to sign your guy as a free agent, and they happen to be a team that still has a pick on the board, the best thing you can do is tell that team, and mean it, but tell them that he'll go to any team but them.
No, I tell teams you're not going to get him, period. You're not going to get him. If you're planning on waiting until he's a free agent, you're not going to get him. He's going to go to another team. There's been some guys that have been recruiting him all along that he knows better. He knows a coach better, or a coach on the staff, and he's going to go to that team. So
absolutely. And even though it might be better to go to free agency at that, once you get to the compensatory picks in the 7th round, if a team's calling you to want you and it's a good fit and the depth chart works, and you can put an extra $35,000 in your client's pocket and give them the boost of, having the credibility of getting drafted, I think that's a win all the way around. Yeah,
no, it can be a win. It certainly can be. There's something to be said about going to great situations, though, with and I've had more typically it's offensive linemen with offensive line coaches. I think that because offensive line is so dependent on the offensive line coach. Typically teams, their offensive line coach is the best coach on their staff. So I think a lot of personnel departments listen to their offensive line coaches a little bit more than other positions because of those 5 guys and the synergy that it takes in playing offensive line. That's the one position where I think that, I think some of those guys really do benefit from going to a good elite offensive line coach.
Well, I think one of the other things is it's very difficult for scouts. Let's say they've been scouting for 5 or less years. They didn't play the game, or they played the game and didn't play offensive line. They really don't know how to evaluate offensive linemen.
I agree with you. I agree.
And so they put a lot of that task of evaluation on the offensive line coach or assistant offensive line coach, and they trust him. And if a player is a good fit with that coach, sometimes a player is not being evaluated in training camp based upon what he can do only. He's being evaluated with how he fits next to the 2 guys by him, or 1 guy by him. And if they play well together as a group, you could actually have a player, and I've had a few of these, that didn't have the requisite athleticism that they were looking for, but yet they played a decade.
I agree. And you find that on the offensive line. You can actually find those guys.
But at corner, you can't hide.
You can't hide. You absolutely cannot hide.
If it's man press,
Or
Yeah,
wide
if it's man
receiver.
press. Yeah, wide
Yes.
receiver, same thing. Man, if you're out on the edge and you run by somebody, or you can't get open, or you're a DB and you can't run,
You can't run.
you're not going to be in the NFL very long.
No, you can't hide. Like you said, you can't hide. It's very apparent quickly.
Hey, Kevin, I want to thank you so much for being on today. I want to wish you and all your agents and all your clients, have an uber successful weekend in the draft, and we'll do this again sometime.
No, thank you. I appreciate you having me on, and best of luck to you as well.
Thank you, Kevin. Have a great day, man.
All right, take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Pro Mindset. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. 5 stars, of course. You can follow us on our website, ProMindsetPodcast.com, or on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Pro Mindset Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you the next time.
This year, millions will be diagnosed with low energy, but Planet Fitness has the cure. Boost your energy with tons of equipment in our clean and spacious clubs for $1 down and $10 a month.
Join the judgment-free zone today. Deal extended to Wednesday, April 12th.
See Home Club for details.
Leftovers. Or the DMV.
Number 97.
Or house cleaning. Or
Chumba Casino always brings the fun. Play over 100 different games online for free from anywhere. You could redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. Live the Chumba life. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.